TSSF
Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about Super Nintendo Reverb and how to use it, when to use it, the different kinds of reverb, what it can do, and its limitations. So to me, SNES Reverb is one of the most recognizable sounds from the Super Nintendo. When somebody asks me what makes the Super Nintendo sound, I usually play an example like from Final Fantasy where you can hear the trumpet being affected by the reverb, as well as its effect on vibrato, giving a phaser-like sound when it modulates. Some games like Super Castlevania 4 didn't even use Super Nintendo Reverb, because the reverb had one requirement, and that was that it used sample memory. It has 16 settings, and each setting uses a multiple of 2048 bytes. Because there was only 64 kilobytes of SRAM that you can use, the echo, the music, the sound effects, the samples, they all shared this memory. So the musicians of Super Castlevania 4 decided that this memory was better suited for more complex samples. However, games like Final Fantasy or Mega Man X use the echo to give their game soundtracks their own unique flavor. Other games relied on a different philosophy where they chose settings that seemed to fit the song better. One of those games being Chrono Trigger seemed to choose settings that also took into consideration the memory limitations. Here's an example of a song called Far Off Promise compared to the ending theme Two Good Friends. In this example, you can hear that Far Off Promise has a longer delay than Two Good Friends does. That's because Two Good Friends needs more memory for the extra instrumentation it uses for when the song reaches its bridge. In this video, I'm going to use Plogue's chipcrusher VST. There's a new version that came out that has Super Nintendo Reverb, and it does a very good job at making it sound just like the original Echo sounded, because it outputs at 32 kHz, as well as it handles the volume linearly instead of logarithmically like other VSTs tend to do. The fact that it outputs at 32 kHz seems to help when it comes to handling those rogue resonant frequencies that tend to happen at shorter delay settings. And while you can use these settings with other plugins, I still believe chipcrusher sounds the most authentic. And with that, I've been talking long enough, so let's get to it. Alright, let's get started by loading up our DAW. I use Cakewalk because it's free. It went out of business, I think it was last year, and it got bought by BandLabs, and BandLabs started offering it for free. Probably to promote their social media network. Anyways, so it is also what loads all my old project files. So, I don't know, I guess I'm just used to it. But anyways, let's load up chipcrusher in a bus track. Now, there is one thing you should know about chipcrusher. When you try to load it up in a bus track and the bus track has no audio routed to it, then it does not respond. So if you click on this, you'll see how it blinks. That's because there's no audio technically being routed to this this track. So let's go to our, I call it a wet track because that's where all the effect is going to be. I'm going to, let's get rid of this track really quick just because it's easier to create a new send to a new stereo bus. Call this Echo. I also like to create a main output bus. That's just so that I can control the output a little bit better. And what I'm going to do is I'll take all of the outputs and route their outputs to the main. So now we'll just mute the echo. Let's just play it to make sure we got sound. We do, it's just very loud, so we'll lower that by -6 decibels. Good, 6.2 is fine. Good enough. So now let's load up chipcrusher. I have some pre-made SPC delay presets that I've made. So here's the one that I made for Final Fantasy IV. Now they're also made keeping in mind that chipcrusher usually gets inserted on the track. So what I'm going to do is I'll edit this preset, shut the dry off. And now when I play this back, it should sound almost like the Super Nintendo version. So there you have it. That's Final Fantasy IV reverb in a nutshell. I think it sounds very close. Here's the original for comparison. There's a part in this song where it shuts the reverb off. It's about right here. And as you can hear, it's still playing, but if you play the actual game version, see, it's dry now. So what we want to do to replicate that is we'll go to bar 59. We'll load up the track where all the instruments that will have the reverb. And I forget how to do this. I think I drag it down, load up. Yeah, that's what I want. So I'll load up the automation lane, then I'll find the echo send level there. Right now it should be at, I guess that's 0 decibels, good. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna drag it down to 0. And then I want to bring it back at about bar 66 because that's when it, and that's when the echo comes back in. Maybe it wasn't bar 66. Oh, it was bar 64. We'll just drag our nodes over down to 64. Good. When I make sure it gets right to 0. There we go. Now when I play this, it should cut out just like it did in the song. Gave me a little bit of a glitch there because I don't think I put it right at 59. No, I didn't. There we go. Try that again. Might work if I place it a little bit sooner. There we go. So this song's called Final Fantasy IV Battle for the Planets, created by Mark Rogwine. He had created it for his soundtrack called Boss Battles for the Soul, which I'll put the link down in the description below. Basically, I have it set up just like Zeromus. Bass left, bass right, strings left. This one says right, but it's strings right. You can see they're pan left and right, so I also had to pan the send so that it doesn't come into chipcrusher as a mono signal. So we're gonna play this one. Let's hear how it sounds. Hopefully it sounds very Final Fantasy IV-esque. I've forgotten to mention this before, but on a Super Nintendo, you can only turn echo on and off on a channel basis. You can't change the send level. So it's either on or off. So that's where chipcrusher has an advantage over the original hardware. But you can't change the volume dynamically in the songs. It was rarely ever done. Okay, so let's hear how the trumpet part sounds. See if we got that phasing vibrato that Final Fantasy is known for. So for this one, we're going to use a very well-known Genesis song. This song would sound cool with Mega Man X preset, so I had created one before. You can see the time setting is 3, which is 48 milliseconds. Feedback is 54%. There is no dry percentage because, again, we're on a bus track. The wet percent is 85%, but that's pretty high. And there's a reason for that. So the effect left has its phase inverted for giving you that stereo kind of, not stereo, surround kind of feeling when you're hearing the song. And you'll see the filter actually has settings there. Now, the filter is not something that a lot of games used, but it's used to give your echo a little bit less of an abrasive tail to it. And the reason I say that is because Mega Man X had a high, like a very loud and short reverb, but because it was filtered, the tail sounds a little bit softer. You can see the left phase also inverted for that surround effect. So let's play the song and hear what it sounds like. Here's the effect bypassed. Original Genesis. Let's re-enable it. And again, we're only doing the melodic parts, not the bass or the drums. Let's add the bass and the drums to the effect just to hear how it sounds like. Not bad. Here's a test with the Mega Man X preset using the Roland S50 guitar sample. This sample is very famously used by Capcom in most of their 90s video games. Here I'm going to demonstrate how both Star Fox and Mega Man X use the same filter settings. So we'll play Mega Man X's Spark Mandrill. You see the hex settings right here. Now we'll play Corneria. You can see the filter settings are exactly the same. The only difference is the echo level, the feedback, the master volume, the delay. We're going to pause that because let's see if we can reproduce it. I'm just going to move this off screen for now. I'm going to change the preset to Mega Man X. I'm just going to edit it. I can see that the delay is set to 2, so that's 32 milliseconds. The feedback is set to 31%, so I'm going to turn it down. The wetness level is... So the master is 60, the echo level is 32, so I'd say that's about 52%. Of course you can calculate it, but right now I'm just going to do it by eye. And there was no inverted phase on the echo. And now this should sound exactly like a Super Nintendo version. Again, let's play the original for comparison. And then we'll play the chipcrusher version. And just to prove that this isn't a recording of the Super Nintendo version, we'll shut off the echo. So about now you're thinking, great, now I can reproduce Final Fantasy and Mega Man X reverb, but how do I make my own, or how do I reproduce other games as reverb? Well, here's what you're going to have to do. You have to play an SPC file, so we're going to use the intro Tales of Phantasia Premonition song that I used for the beginning of this video as an example. First thing you want to do is get the SPCs. You can find them with a Google search, play them. And Kironiko and SPC Play can show you these details, but what you want to do is find the echo settings right here and note them down. So right now, the main volume is 127, so that's 100% for the Super Nintendo. Evol is 32. So to do the math, I'm sure you can figure out percentages. Myself, I usually just use a tool like this. So right now, we got 32 is what percentage of 127, and that's about 25%. So let's load up chipcrusher. We're going to use it inline here. We're not going to use a bus like before. So chipcrusher. First of all, let's just get it playing. Right now, chipcrusher has its default settings on the cabinet, the DAC encoding, so we'll just shut them off. We'll turn on SPC delay. And already when you use the SPC delay with no settings, it as a low-pass filter, it turns it into 32 kilohertz, which is what the Super Nintendo output. So right there, you can already hear a difference in fidelity. So again, we'll get these settings. Delay setting is 5, so it's 80 milliseconds, and about 96% for the feedback. You can hear in the Super Nintendo version also that it's using a surround effect. And we'll reproduce that as well. So again, we'll use 25% for the volume. Let's go back into edit. 25% for the volume. We'll keep dry at 100% because we're using the plugin inline like I said before. Time is 5, so that's 80 milliseconds. Feedback, I already forgot what the feedback was. Feedback is 96% in the beginning. And I say the beginning because it changes in the middle of the song. Already, if I play it, you'll hear Super Nintendo sound. That's a very long tail right there. If we invert the phase for the dry channel, that will reproduce the surround effect that the Super Nintendo version had. So let's play it. You also want to invert the phase of the reverb. That way it also reverberates with that surround effect. The problem with this is if you have the surround effect going on, then you might actually have problems if you sum everything to mono. Because the way phase works is if you have a positive phase and a negative phase merging together, then that actually nullifies the sound. Halfway through the song, it also changes the feedback. So if I continue to play the music here, just skip ahead a bit. You can see the feedback right here changes from 96% down to 75%. And the reason for that is if we continue playing the song while it transitions, you'll hear that the reverb is too long. So the way to fix that is basically we just, at least in Cakewalk, we open up an automation track. You could probably do it in the same way in different DAWs, but here we'll go to chipcrusher, we'll select SPC delay feedback, which is right here. And our feedback setting is 96%. And if I check this to 96, we're just approximating right now. 97 is fine. We'll just approximate, go like that, and that should change the tail end of that reverb very quickly. So we'll just go fast, and we'll just jump it that way. We don't have to change it again. So now if I play this back, it'll change the tail end of the reverb here. You could do this for almost every game. The harder part would be if your game has EFIR settings. When I say EFIR, it's the filter settings for the reverb. You can take these values and then load up this tool that I'm going to put down in the description below. This was created by MadBrain, and in this tool you can input all the EFIR settings in hexadecimal format, and then it'll output as percentages that you can then use in your chipcrusher settings right here. Right about here. It's possible in a future version of chipcrusher that this tool will be integrated into the VST itself. I've been assured by David, the CEO of Plogue, that this will be implemented into chipsynth SFC when it's ultimately released in the future. So there you have it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below and I will try to answer them the best I can. Hopefully you found this video informative. I plan on doing a series and we'll probably continue explaining more aspects of the Super Nintendo sound and Super Nintendo music in general. And just let me know if you have any more questions. And with that, I will leave you. Thank you for watching and we will see you in the future.